All right. Hello, everyone. This is Jake Light, Gaming Lawyer at your service. We're once again back with another stream today, and today we'll be doing legal investigations again, and we're looking into harassment. All right, specifically harassment. Although I say that it's going to be, hopefully we get something out of it at the end of this, seminar, because it's so complicated. It's a complicated matter in terms of where you're asking this and when you're asking this and why you're asking this question, or what is harassment. So we'll take it slow. We'll take this slow, all right? And first of all, chat widget seems to be broken. I think it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, just delayed. So first of all, why did I ask this question in the first place, right? And I think if people were following me on Twitter, or at least is very active on Twitter, specifically the VTuber space, you know that recently, just a few days ago, I believe, still within the week, very fresh, that some controversy was happening. So I don't think I have to really explain it in my own words. We have a news article mentioned here. We just go right here and just read through all of it. Basic summary of what has happened up to this date. All right, 23rd February 2023. It's just published today. Probably in a different time zone, but it's today for me. All right. Harassment is very nuanced, even legally. As a person currently in legal case due to people harassing me. Yep. So yeah, title says in this news, Silvervalse slams freaks for Hogwarts Legacy harassment in return Twitch stream. All right. So Silverface, I believe they don't really explain who is Silverface, but basically she is a prominent VTuber that is part of a company, I think belonging to the same VTuber called Iron Mouse, like the most famous VTuber in the space here. One of it at least, a couple others, but she is, when you hear the indie VTuber, her name pops up. In any case, that's not important. We just want to know what's happened, right? So streamer Silvervalse blasted bullies who harass her for streaming Hogwarts Legacy in her return to Twitch. Hogwarts Legacy has been one of the biggest game launches of all times and the most watched ever on Twitch. It hasn't come without its share of controversy. Boycotters have opposed the Harry Potter game due to its connection to series creator J.K. Rowling. The author has been accused of making transphobic comments, something she and others have denied. Alright? The Hogwarts Legacy drama even resulted in the streamers being harassed for playing the game on Twitch, including Silvervalse. So the other streamer they are talking about is, I believe, Girlfriend Reviews. Has a YouTube channel, pretty popular, does a lot of reviews, so as well. However, the VTuber isn't backing down despite being reduced to tears during a recent broadcast. Alright? Silvervalse won't be bullied amid Hogwarts Legacy controversy. Due to the backlash others received, Silvervalse used Twitch's automod feature to protect herself against possible harassment in her chat. Twitch's automod holds comments with certain words for review, with trans being one of them. This resulted in some viewers believing she had banned the word from her chat, sending Twitter into a frenzy. Although the VTuber ended her previous streams in tears, Silvervalse has since returned to Twitch to finish Hogwarts Legacy and isn't holding back. Alright, and here she is being quoted to say this. I'm just not going to say the swear words. I do not condone the ideals of the author. I just want to be a wizard, she proclaimed. I want to play my wizard game that made my childhood worth living. And I'm going to be a wizard and we're going to enjoy this game. Alright? And then on her tweet over here, right, It says, to follow this up, Silvervalse took an aim at those harassing her and others for playing the game, telling them to do something better with their time. Alright? I will, quote over here, I will not be bullied by a bunch of Twitter freaks with nothing better to do with their goddamn lives. If you want to make changes, go make actual changes instead of harassing streamers on the internet. Alright. LGBT people, again another quote, are awesome. Twitter people are not awesome. F you. End quote, she added. With the VTuber defiantly standing against her harassers, it'll be interesting to see if fellow streamers follow suit. Notably, Hassan Packet refused to play the game, claiming that it wasn't worth being bullied over. Right, so that's pretty much, yeah, sums it up pretty nicely. Well, I would say so far what has happened with the controversy, which I call Silvervalse controversy. So yeah, but regardless, all right, we are not going to be talking about her exactly. It's just that this situation has prompted me to find out what is exactly harassment. Right? People have been throwing that word so many times. I feel like I've lost the meaning on this, what this word is. But before I start, I do need to, how do you say? Tell people this is, we're not going to criticize, or we're not going to give any comments on what Silvervalse is doing or any other streamer is doing or whatever other people are doing. We're just going to be focusing on what is harassment. And if people are asking my opinion, this is just what I'm going to tell you. I don't support J.K. Rowling's and whatever she's trying to promote. I'm not going to play the Hogwarts Legacy. It's my choice, right? And anyone else who does play it, right? I will not support it. I will not engage with people who play it in any way, in any form. All right, that is, I would say, pretty modest take on this. All right, this is my take. Other than that, I won't comment on anything further on it. Right. So yeah, let's see what is harassment. So my approach in finding out what is harassment is a lot of different places, because I understand it's not just a simple thing, and a lot of different contexts, different situations could mean different things. So we just started with the basic. What is the very basic definition in English language, at least? So what is harassment? According to Cambridge Dictionary, right? It's very simple. It just means behavior that annoys or upsets someone. That's it. So it's very vague. It's very general, right? Very, very general. Behavior could mean anything, right? It could be actions, it could be spoken words, it could be things you are not even doing. You're just with expressing something with your body language, even maybe your presence, So yeah, it encompasses everything. So the dictionary definition of harassment is not useful, right? So the only thing is that this behavior annoys people or upsets people. But really, anything, if that is the definition of harassment, right? Anything could be considered, any behavior could be considered annoying or upsetting. Right? So we have to further look into it, of course. What is this all about specifically? So I look into Wikipedia. It has a bit more words into putting to what it means when people say harassment. So at least in the first paragraph of Wikipedia page, it says harassment covers a wide range of behaviors of offensive nature, right? It is commonly understood as behavior that demeans, humiliates, or embarrasses a person, and it is characteristically identified by its unlikelihood in terms of social and moral reasonableness. So this is a lot to take in, or just one sentence here, but of course the first part is quite easy to understand. As long as the behavior is it demeans someone or humiliates someone or embarrasses someone, it's considered harassment. All right. But of course, by what kind of standard, by what kind of reference are we saying this would be considered harassment? So it says, the other half over here says, characteristically identified by its unlikelihood in terms of social and moral reasonableness. So they're trying to say that what would amount to harassment would be socially unacceptable or morally unacceptable by a reasonable person. Still very vague, still not that doesn't really makes a person understand what harassment is. Just that, different societies, different cultures would consider something harassment, maybe in this context, but could not be a harassment in another context, in another society, something like that. So not that what do you say, helpful. Right, moving on. In the legal sense, these are behaviors that appear to be disturbing, upsetting, or threatening. So from what I've researched, when we're talking about legal harassment, a bit clearer, because we have samples, we have test cases, such as such. But still, we'll go into that when we, actually look into the samples of laws. We're going to see how they define harassment. All right. Now, over here, traditional forms evolve from discriminatory grounds and have an effect of nullifying a person's rights or impairing a person from benefiting from their rights. So this is much clearer, in the sense that they are saying harassment should involve something that relates to discriminatory grounds. So you're being harassed on something about the person, and because of that, you're affecting their rights, either exercising their rights or not exercising their rights, or benefiting their rights, all that stuff. All right, much more specific. Then he says, and this is the second last sentence, when these behaviors become repetitive, right, it is defined as bullying. Right, bullying, I don't think I've really want to get into that, because bullying is another topic. I think it's closely related to harassment. But if it's repetitive, over here at least Wikipedia says it's considered bullying. Right? Then the continuity of repetitiveness and the aspect of distressing, alarming, or threatening may distinguish it from insult. So harassment over here, at least is defined in the Wikipedia, is saying that it has to be continuous. It has to be repetitive, meaning the person doing it has to do it over and over again in a specific period of time to be considered harassment. If not, then it's only an insult, right? Insult is much less serious, and there's time, unless it's defamatory, you don't really get in trouble of insulting someone. Although, you're not good, you're not ethically, morally speaking, still not good to be insulting someone, right? Insulting just really quite literally means, based on whether it's true or not, you put on a judgment against a person in a negative light. Anyways, moving on to types of harassment. So first off, I've categorized, we'll be looking through the legal definitions of what is harassment. So we're not going to be looking at how to apply this harassment in any way. We're just going to see how they define in the specific laws. But yeah, as you can see, under criminal harassment, right? Under criminal harassment, what I found out, at least trying to research through US laws, that's why I just put it over here. There's no federal law that covers the entire United States in regards to what is harassment. From my search, For my findings, every states have their own, definition of harassment, right? Really depends where you're living in the United States. So different states have different definitions of what is federal law and how it's being enforced. So to go through the entire to every single state, find out if there's any common grounds for harassment, I don't think that's a good approach, right? But suffice to say, again, meaning it's like what I can gather, what I can conclude from US law is not everyone has the same definition of harassment. Not everyone has the same way to apply it. So not helpful to us. But that said, it's from what I found, it's similar to what has been defined here, at least in the Wikipedia, where it's either humiliating, embarrassing, or distressful, right? But nothing specific, right? Yeah, moving on. UK law, right? UK law is much better, much better. So we have a couple of acts. We have a couple of acts that everyone in UK has to follow. That's a good thing about smaller countries where you just have one governing body to dictate what laws are in most subjects, in most topics, in most areas. So over here, the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. Good thing they have a very specific law on this as well. Section 1 defines what harassment is. And I quote over here, a person must not pursue a course of conduct which amounts to harassment of another, and which he knows or ought to know amounts to harassment of the other. And in brackets, if a reasonable person in possession of the same information would think the course of conduct amounted to harassment of the other. So there are two to three important points over here to understand what in the UK law defines as harassment. So first, it has to be in the course of conduct, right? Course of conduct meaning there has to be as a series of acts to amount to harassment. So it can't be just one isolated incident, right? One time you say something bad about a person or harass a person, which causes them to feel embarrassed or feel hurt or anything like that, wouldn't amount to being a harassment, right? Then next, the person doing the course of conduct ought to know amounts to harassment of the other. So meaning to say the person doing it must have the intention or would know that what he's doing would be considered harassment, right? That's why they in brackets over here, if a reasonable person in possession of the same information would think the course of conduct amounts to the harassment of the other. But even if the person committing harassment doesn't think that they are committing harassment, if a reasonable person thinks so, i.e., the person who will decide whether this is harassment or not is, of course, the judge, right? The judge will tell you if it's harassment or not. So the judge is a reasonable person, but yeah, we always try to, in theory, right? In theory, the assumption is judges are like any other people and they are very fair and reasonable, so they would decide on matters as how a average person would decide in looking at the when looking on the facts, right? So this is, I would say, not helpful. The only thing we can glean out of this is that a person needs to continuously do the act of harassment to be considered harassment, right? Intention or without any intention, it doesn't matter, right? So that's the only thing we can find out. But of course, we have, at least in UK, United Kingdom, have two other laws that I can find describing or defining what is harassment. Right. So over here, in section 154 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994, right over here, they define harassment as intent to cause a person harassment, alarm, or distress. And he uses threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior or disorderly behavior, or displays any writing, sign, or other visible representation which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, thereby causing or another person harassment, alarm, or distress. Yeah. Let's take it step by step, right? I highlighted it, so it should be easy to spot what harassment is trying, what this law is trying to say, what harassment is, right? For a person to commit harassment, they have to have the intent, right, to cause a person, to make a person harassment. I don't know why it's worded like that. So we have alarm or distress. So to make them panic or in a distressing mood, distressing emotional circumstance, right? Very broad. But of course, how does one person do that? By threatening or being abusive or insulting, using insulting words, right? Threatening, abusive, or insulting words against a person, or the behavior itself, or disorderly behavior. So actions, doing something, or displays any writing, sign, or other visible representation. So this is very easily means writing something, anything in any format, or not just writing, probably because it also says visible representation. So it could be through a video, right? Through some sort of a visual format of this harassment, and then showing to people. So it could be a physical object, or it could be digital. We can interpret this as digital, even though it's like made in 1994. Which the internet is in infancy still. Yeah, if there is still internet during that time, I don't think so. Anyways, yeah, this includes texts, emails, direct messages, Twitter posts, most likely, and of course, any other platform, social media platform you can think of would be considered under this. Displays any writing, sign, or other visible representation which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, right? So this is much clearer. And again, what we're looking right now is criminal offense, all right? All of this is something will be considered an act that will likely get you fined or sent to jail, all right? Get you imprisoned in jail. Anyway, so not something you should take lightly when people accuse you of harassment, or when people are saying they are getting harassed. It's very serious, all right? Very serious. But of course, there are exceptions to this section 154. It says no offense is committed, right? No offense is committed by a person inside a dwelling, and the person who is harassed, alarmed, or distressed is also inside that or another dwelling. So quite strangely, this could be the act being outdated or something, but the harassment is narrowed down to being, if you commit this so-called act of harassment inside of your own home, while the other person that you're harassing is also dwelling, meaning say living or like occupying, how you want to say it, at a home as well, in a residence as well, this offense doesn't apply. Harassment doesn't apply when it happens like this. So again, we're back to square one. It's like, say, at least in the context of online communication, right? Because if someone sends something in Twitter to another person, most likely it's at the person's dwelling, at a person's residence. So yeah, pretty limiting. Although it does say it can be committed either in public or private places. So this really depends on what's your definition of private or public places and dwelling. I've not looked into cases. Maybe there's a case to reflect the changing societal adaptations, technology and such. So this could be not really a problem to have this law apply to in situations like a streamer, a content creator, or someone who's on Twitter getting harassed, to consider this as to consider those acts as harassment under this act, of course. Anyways, moving on. All right. Section 26 of Equality Act 2010. This is a lot more recent, and when we're looking at this law, at least, right? This harassment. So under this law, it is defined: harassment is a person A harasses another B if A engages in unwanted conduct related to a relevant protected characteristic, and the conduct has the purpose or effect of violating B's dignity or creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, and humiliating or offensive environment for B. Right? So for this one, they're saying that the act must be unwanted. The conduct must be unwanted by the person getting, harassed. But being harassed due to due to a relevant protected characteristic. I have not put in here what is protected characteristics, but simply put, it's all the sex, nationality, ethnicity, gender, all those minority groups that are being targeted and all this stuff. Whether it's pretty broad. It's pretty broad. In any case, that is what is defined here. And also the act has to have the effect of violating B's dignity. So, dignity. How do you define dignity? Okay. Or creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, and or offensive environment. This is much more easy to understand. Making the person getting harassed to feel intimidated, to feel unsafe, to feel that some sort of violence is going to, or some sort of a physical or mental trauma is going to be inflicted on the person, degrading, making the person embarrassed, making the person humiliated, i.e. not comfortable at all at being at that place, just because of the contact they were making. This is much easier to understand if, let's say, this contact relates to race, relates to sex, relates to gender, and all that stuff, right? So if that is what's happening, then yeah, we clearly I will agree. It will be considered harassment, all right? But of course, we also have another one over here, down here. It's basically the same thing, except it's for sexual harassment. I haven't really talked about sexual harassment because a lot of the laws involving sexual harassment is actually only covered in workplace, unfortunately. So yeah, we'll be talking. Oh, thank you for the follow, Feather Burps. Welcome, welcome. If you're here, say hello if you want to. But anyways, yeah. So, oh, Kiwami and to Anton, welcome, welcome. Thank you, thank you. Is that Saul Goodman's rival? I can't compete against Saul Goodman, and also I'm nothing like Saul Goodman. But yeah. So we're talking about harassment over here. So we're going to be reaching towards what is harassment in the definition of employment, but we'll get into that later. So in any case, at least over here, right, when in regards to sexual harassment in UK, it covers any situation, not just the workplace. So anyone who commits sexual harassment, and I don't think this is up to debate or to discussion what is considered as sexual harassment. It's pretty obvious what would be considered, right? You depending on, of course, depending on the facts, but yeah. So anyways, moving on. Now, I always do this with my sort of like educational videos, where if I were to look at laws, I would look at three countries. One is the United States, then the UK, then Malaysia, because that's where I'm living in, and that's where I'm most familiar with, right? So in Malaysia, I saw your tweet. Oh, nice. How's it going? I'm going good. How are you doing? How are you? I'm guessing you're here because you're interested in knowing what's harassment. So yeah, unfortunately, in Malaysia, there's not yet, I'm not sure if it is going to be one, it's not a offense, it's not a criminal offense to harass someone. So unfortunately, things like stalking, right, is not a criminal offense as well. A lot of behavior, a lot of actions or things that I would say is very prominent in Malaysia, being done in Malaysia, would be considered harassment. Would be considered harassment. But some good news is, last year, 2 years ago, last year, we have a law recently enacted at, I think, late 2022, called Anti-Sexual Harassment Act 2022. So this act, although not talking about harassment in general, it's more towards specifically sexual harassment. But good thing is that, again, this is not limited to just employment, not workplace, of where this act has to be committed, this criminal offense has to be committed. It's a good thing. Anywhere, if you find that someone is sexually harassing a person, this will be considered applicable. Hello, Featherbirds. So over here in Malaysia, sexual harassment is defined as unwanted conduct of a sexual nature in any form, whether verbal, non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical, directed at a person which is reasonably offensive or humiliating or is a threat to his well-being. So we joke about this, but in reality, a lot of our laws are based on UK law or some other country's law. We copy a lot of different countries' laws because we aren't really the best at making our own. So this one, you can see that it's quite similar to the UK law that was made in 2010, right? But they are, more or less the same. Although in Malaysia, they are a bit more specific, as in the action, the conduct has been specified to be verbal, non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical. So anything really. It can be spoken, it can be unspoken, it can be just looking like you're like something that would be considered as sexual harassment. Maybe you're, I don't know, flashing people, being inappropriate, while just standing there, staring really, really creepily or something like that. It really depends on the facts, of course. And that's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, this is criminal, right? This is all criminal. Anything over here which I have discussed, which you can see I've pinned on in the chat. You can look at this document yourself. Go through the entire thing to the end. I would still have no problem. We're just going. I'm just sharing it so people can look at it at their own pace, do their own research, and make their own decision. What is considered harassment, right? So moving on, employment harassment. This one in U.S. law. Oh, there is a lot of things that they talk about when it comes to employment harassment, at least in US, all right? So we have like three different types of laws in United States that covers the entire country, all right? These are all federal acts, federal laws, which all states have to follow. So we have the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. All of this can be found in the commission, government body of the US called US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right? They have the sources, they have the guidelines and all this stuff in regards to employment harassment. So this one, it's kind of under criminal as well, but it also has some civil laws in it, in the sense that if, let's say, people are committing illegal acts over here, employees or employers can take civil actions, not just make complaints. They can take civil actions against these people for damages and such. Anyways, so over here, at least they have a definition of what is harassment, specifically in the workplace though, of course. But not that helpful, in the sense that it's very limited. Very limited. Thank you for that, Pat. Again, there is an entire webpage for this one where they talk about what is harassment. All right? Harassment is a form of employment discrimination that violates the acts that I just explained. So they are supposed to be unwelcome conduct that is based on race, color, religion, sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, or pregnancy, national origin, older age, disability, genetic information, all this stuff. It relates to discrimination. So from what we can tell, at least so far, right? In the US, I believe, and also, let's see, in the, at least in the United States, their definition of harassment is something when people discriminate another person or something specific about that person, which would be things that are very could be considered offensive, sensitive, like race, color, religion, sex, all that stuff, right? Nothing really that is like in general, right? If you call a person stupid, or you call a person a fool, or you call a person evil, maybe bad, if you're just making that statement without attaching it to all these things, like saying a person is bad because of this race, color, religion, or sex, and will amount to harassment, apparently, right? But if, let's say, we're going back to the context of Twitter, of the controversy, which again I call it the Silvervalse controversy. For one part, there are two sides of this, right? Both are getting harassment, and harassment is not good. But at least in this definition, right? This definition, I'm not saying you can apply this law in that situation, because this is for workplaces only. At least through this definition, you can say that, yeah, that is harassment, in the sense that there has been statements directly saying a person is bad or not good or violent or extreme, I think, because they are transgender people. There have been a lot of statements being attached to this, as in saying transgender people are this, that. So that would be considered harassment under here, right? Anyways, so I would say if anything, you want to look at what harassment definition is, at least over here it's very clear, right? Compared to UK law, which is very general, doesn't really specify what sort of a behavior. It's just that as long as it makes people embarrassed, makes people humiliated or degraded or threatened, all that stuff, then it's considered perhaps harassment. Doesn't really tie anything into it. So moving on, we have again sexual harassment over here, under workplace, under employment only. United States doesn't have a definition for what is sexual harassment in general, but only in workplace. That's it. It still relates back to the three acts that we have. The EEOC, as mentioned, which is including sexual harassment. Harassment can include sexual harassment or unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. Right, so I don't think there's anything to discuss on this. Sexual harassment is rather straightforward. But anyway, as long as you look into the facts of what is considered sexual harassment. Then we move on to UK law, right? Again, this one, since UK already has a law that covers all areas, right? The Protection from Harassment Act 1997. So that one will also apply in employment laws or in workplace situations. But of course, they also have a case adding more to it, specifically for workplace. This case is called Madrowski versus Guys and St. Thomas NHS Trust. Simply put, this law just adds additional vicarious liability for the employer if an employee was getting sexually harassed by another employee, right? Not the employer. So for those that do not know what is vicarious liability, meaning to say, even if the employer is not the person, is not the company or individual at fault or committing the sexual harassment, they are strictly liable for it. They are responsible for it if any employee gets sexually harassed. So this would mean that the employee that has been victimized can take legal actions against an employer, right? Meaning also, of course, means that employers should be careful, should take responsibility, take actions against someone that might be committing sexual harassment or making preventive measures, right, for any sexual harassment to happen. That's what this case is. Just an extra thing for anyone who wants to learn. Right. Then we have, of course, going back to Malaysian law. Unfortunately, again, we don't have anything, even in the workplace, that would define what is harassment. Unfortunately, the only thing we have is sexual harassment, specifically under the Section 81A of Employment Act 1955. So there is the sexual harassment, defined as means any unwanted contact of a sexual nature, whether verbal, non-verbal, visual, gestural, or physical, directed at a person which is offensive or humiliating or is a threat to his well-being, arising out of in the course of his employment. So this section is exactly the same as the one that we just looked at in Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. The only thing that was added in, or in this case omitted, because 1955, it's an older law than the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, which was enacted, gazetted in 2022. So this is the only thing they remove in that law, arising out of in the course of his employment. So other than that, nothing to really say about Malaysia, unfortunately. Yeah, our country hasn't really recognized harassment as a criminal offense, even though a lot of activists are saying this is something people should add, especially when you don't have a law that so many people are like committing and is fine right now. Stalking is one of it. Stalking people. It's closely related to harassment, and in UK they have it inside, I believe, Protection from Harassment Act as well. Anyways, so that's all for the laws in regards to what's the definition of harassment. So far we're good, I believe, right? But it doesn't really tell us what harassment is. Even now, our conclusion, in a sense, is it means anything. It still could mean anything as long as it's insulting, threatening, distressing someone, or alarm someone, all that stuff. It can still be considered that. So I guess, if we're only reading, if our research ended here, we won't get any useful information out of this. So luckily, I already thought about this, and I think it would be more appropriate that we look into the different social media platforms on how they define harassment, in which they are very clear, or at least most are very clear, on what is considered harassment. All right, and I would say a lot more relevant in our case of why we are talking about harassment in the first place, i.e. the Silvervalse controversy. All right, so first we're going to look into this one. All right, Twitch community guidelines, where this happened. All right, it's not all right, it's happening. Okay, so going to only look at harassment. This Twitch community guidelines is something I talk about constantly. So we're gonna see over here, harassment. Oh, I think someone's subscribed. Oh, thank you for the subscription on my YouTube channel, Kiwami. So yeah, harassment. What does Twitch say about harassment? Harassment deters the growth of vibrant and diverse communities, prevents people from feeling safe on Twitch, and creates a gateway for more severe forms of harm and abuse. Very broad, but makes sense, right? They're saying harassment means actions that would deter a community from being vibrant and diverse. Aiming to say they want to be inclusive, right? They want everyone to be able to use Twitch. So these actions, this harassment would make that not possible for Twitch to have a different all kinds of different people inside the communities, right? And it says prevents people from feeling safe on Twitch. Yeah. So all these acts is going to make people unsafe. They will feel not welcome. They will feel that this the actions that are being taken by these people that they are saying is considered harassment make it so that this place is uncomfortable for them to not feel safe in a sense, either physically or mentally. Doesn't really say what type of safety, just feeling safe, right? So it could be either, and creates a gateway for more severe forms of harm and abuse. So harassing is most likely just going to be, at least in the Twitch platform, right? It's either the streamer, which I think not really happens, the streamer harassing someone, or the chat is the culprit of doing the harassing. So harassing is more or less just saying someone something bad about a person, right? They have examples. We'll look into examples, but of course they are saying this is the gateway for more severe forms of harm and abuse. So could lead to even worse things, actual physical harm to people or actual mental harm to people, like maybe doxing the person or like death threats, all kinds of nasty stuff. All right. Again, I already in my title I put content warning. I didn't specify what kind of content you're getting warned of, but suffice to say, anything that would be falling into the category of harassment, which could be anything. All right. So take note if people are sensitive or would get traumatized if you are like seeing, hearing some certain things that you don't want to hear. It makes you uncomfortable. If it is such a case, please tune out. You know, I value your viewership, your companionship. It's not good. Not how do you say? You don't have to sacrifice your mental or physical health for it. Anyways, so yeah, engaging in harassment will result in enforcement action taken against the relevant accounts. Yeah, so they don't want it to happen and will take actions against you if you commit any harassment. Please keep in mind we expect streamers to take necessary steps to mitigate harassing content that appears on their stream or in their chat. We will not suspend broadcasters that we find to be acting in good faith, including by using tools such as automod, timeouts, and channel bans to remove abuse appearing from the third parties and external sources. So this one, not really that relevant, but just for people to understand. Yeah, so if someone is being toxic, is being harmful, is harassing anyone, even if that person is not you and you're the streamer, you're responsible for that, to remove all that stuff. So how can you be responsible? Should you be doing your quote unquote job on moderation is using all the tools that you have, right? But I would say most of the time it's either, if let's say it's a huge stream, you have a lot of people chatting, most likely you're going to be employing or having volunteers. That would be a more appropriate term because you're not paying mods. You'll be getting volunteers to mod for your channel. So those are the people who will be responsible in making sure one of the things, which is harassment, to not happen in your chat. Anyhow, moving on. So down here we have examples. All right, we're gonna try to get through them as quickly as possible. But I don't think we need to explain certain things that are too obvious, right? All the violence, physical violence, or all that, it's pretty straightforward, right? Then we have, this one, targeting others with repeated or severe personal attacks, right? Repeatedly sending personal insults to a broadcaster after being timed out in channel, browsing other broadcaster channels on stream and directing insults towards them related to their intelligence or appearance. So this is very good, in finding out what is considered harassment, at least inside Twitch's platform. Is they consider personal attacks that are targeted, right, and repeated. Could be repeated, or severe personal attacks. Right, so what is personal attacks? They just say insults as well. Insults related to their intelligence or appearance. So quite straightforward, quite simple. You don't want to be insulting people. That especially in this sort of like platform is all where people are here to have a good time, to enjoy. Everyone, right? Everyone is here watching streams, playing games, or seeing people talk like me, or doing art, whatever we are doing. We're supposed to have a enjoyable time with everyone. So we shouldn't be targeting anyone. We should either someone in the chat, or the streamer themselves, or someone else, right? Aside from the stream, someone not related to the stream. So you might be talking about some third party, some other streamer, which over here it says browsing other broadcasters' channel. Right? These are just examples. It could be anything really. It's not going to be limited to just this one. But they all are considered harassment on the Twitch platform, at least. Then I think this one, that's okay. Inciting viewers to target another person with abuse, regardless whether targets are on or off Twitch. Organizing or participating in hostile raiding. Directly opening a user's channel or stream and directing personal attacks toward them. So this one, I would say something I should explain as well. So this is when a streamer is the one like leading the harassment of someone else, right? Inciting viewers, because this isn't going to be about people who are in chat that will be committing this harassment. So this will be telling people to go and, either harass others or do something, which they just refer to as abuse. What it could be, not sure, but I believe in context we would be able to identify it, right? Of course, this is very hard to say, hard to prove, in the sense that if, let's say, a streamer doesn't directly incite or encourage people to go and attack a person or attack a group of people or whatever, would you say their inaction to be something for them to be held responsible? If, let's say, your community, your chat, decides to attack someone because you were hurt by them, or you didn't like them, or anything like that, so they all instead, like, all these people, without your instructions or anything, but after listening to you, went and harassed someone, would that be considered incitement? You're not saying go and harass these people, send all bad things, write all the bad things to this person, these people, but you're saying this person is bad, this person is not good, this whatever, however you put it, it makes your viewers angry, it makes your viewers want to do something about it. Would you say you're not inciting, or you're inciting them? There, right? So this is something to think about. We'll get back to it probably at the end. So then we have making malicious contacts to us. Yeah, this is not really relevant. I don't think people really do that. Also interesting, just to give you take note, apparently you're not supposed to, at least on Twitch community guidelines, you can't stream snipe people. You can't stream snipe people without their consent. I.e., if, let's say, you're playing Valorant, or you're playing Apex, or you're playing Overwatch, and somehow you're matched together with that person, and you decide to stream snipe them by watching the stream. seeing where they are and see how they do things, and just take that as an opportunity to win the game. Apparently on Twitch, it's not allowed. And of course, we have stalking, ignoring another person's established personal physical boundaries. This is less on the online platform. This is more of a streamer streaming in like vlogging or something in a real place. So not really that relevant. Creating accounts dedicated to harassment, such as through abusive usernames. This has happened. Yeah, this has happened. At least from what I can tell, there have been hate raids going on against transgender people, and when they get raided, sort of, it's more like not stream raided. It's more like there is a group of people that are very, I don't know, hateful. They plan this in a different platform, and they decide who to invade, quote unquote invade them. And how they do this is they create usernames with all really nasty stuff in it. They don't say anything. Most likely they don't say anything. They just flood the person's stream or channel with follows. So simply put, they don't even have to chat anything. They don't say anything. So it's a way to avoid the chat ban, right? If you, let's say, even if you lock down your chat, it will still pop up in your follows, on your alerts. So all the words will still get through somehow. So yeah, this happens. Anyways, I think that's much. Streamers should always consider the consequences of their statements and actions of their audiences, right? Sometimes unwanted focus or attention can encourage others to escalate their behavior into abuse. For example, broadcasting other Twitch streams while insulting those users often encourages others to also direct abuse to the target. Participating in this activity can, therefore, lead to suspension of your account, right? So in a way, they are saying, even if you don't tell people to harass another person, another people, or streamers, your actions could imply that. Your actions could make people do that. So this is not allowed as well. Although harassment is never allowed on Twitch, we want users to express themselves naturally with their friends and communities without fear. These interactions could be misidentified as harassment. In order to fully understand the context of incidents that appear unclear when viewed in isolation, we may require that individuals who feel targeted by abuse indicate that these actions were not consensual banter before we will intervene. Filing a user report or taking moderation action on the individual channel count as such indications, right? So not really relevant again, but they're saying sometimes the conversations being had between a streamer and a chat could feel like harassment. Maybe the chat is being mean to the streamer for some reason, but for an outsider, probably can't see it as something that they usually do. If that's the case, that's something that's not. It's fine. You can, as they call it, banter. You can exchange banter between chat and streamer. You don't have to be so afraid of saying things that you're just joking. But across very gray area, sometimes a banter could lead to actual harassment if it's not controlled properly, right? I've seen a lot of people saying that they have been doing this back and forth of calling each other, insulting each other, whatever, in a friendly manner, but it sometimes would escalate to a point that it's unbearable, uncomfortable, and that's where it would turn into harassment. And yeah. Anyways, moving on. At least for Twitch, right? At least for Twitch, they are very specific They are very clear what harassment is. So much clearer than the laws that we have just gone through, right? So if anything, I would say when it comes to this kind of situation, when you think you're getting harassed, this would be the appropriate place to look at, especially right now. Let's say someone comes in here and then say something, all right? And I have to see what that person is saying. Either it is actual harassment or not, right? But based on the community guidelines, I can determine that easily, whether it's harassment or not. But just shouting that it's harassment, just because maybe they disagree with you, and maybe there's a lot of people disagreeing with you, I don't think that would be considered harassment, right? From what the definitions of Twitch community guidelines has said. Anyhow, moving on. So the next thing, the next platform we want to discuss is Twitter. Yeah, the next one is the worst. Twitter. I would say for anyone that uses Twitter, don't use it as a way to gauge the overall majority of people's sentiment on what is right and what is wrong. It's also not a place for people to debate, discuss serious matters, right? And it's if anything, Twitter is like Facebook to me, and it's not moderated enough that you can have any sane conversations inside Twitter, and also especially the limited words that you can type in each tweet or reply. So if you really want to discuss with people, don't use Twitter. Use Twitter to see opinions, to see anything. Although that's it, contradictorily, I do make my own opinions on Twitter and such, but really, why I do that is for myself. For myself, I'm not arguing with anyone. I'm not discussing with anyone. I'm just, most of the time, when I tweet things, it is for my own purposes only. It's for my own community to look at. Not there to argue with people. I find arguing with people, debating with people, pointless, especially if you have no idea who that person is. I just believe if people are willing to change their mind, willing to have a proper discussion, understand each other, make a compromise, or even they will not do it over in Twitter. They will have private conversations with the person that they really want to understand, right? But that's impossible because most people who use Twitter that goes on and have quote-unquote fights with people, they're just there to really not change the person's mind. They're just trying to express their discontent on a matter, or might be naive enough to think that they can change people's mind through this sort of arguments. But in any case, I would not recommend it, simply for your mental health, right? So in any case, let's look at Twitter's abusive behavior policy and what they say about harassment. Right. They are, just to take note, let everyone know that Twitter and YouTube doesn't really have a proper definition of what harassment is. We have abusive behavior, yes, and for YouTube we have supposedly called harassment and cyberbullying, but YouTube's policy is not that thorough. It's not that detailed. They have a lot of topics, they have a lot of subjects, different areas, but not detailed. Anyways, so under abusive behavior, so here they say you may not engage in the targeted harassment of someone or incite other people to do so, we consider abusive behavior an attempt to harass, intimidate, or silence someone else's voice. So, although they are talking about abusive behavior, they have a definition of abusive behavior, but they're also talking about targeted harassment of someone or incite other people to do so. So, what is harassment? We don't know. It just says it is done against someone or telling people to do the harassment for you. But they define abusive behavior, at least, right, to mean attempt to harass, attempt to intimidate or silence someone else's voice. So it's three things which they define abusive behavior is to harass someone or intimidate someone or silence someone. Harass, we have no idea what Twitter means in this just brief sentence. Intimidate basically means putting fear onto someone else. And silence, simple, saying things to make that person shut up or be quiet. Right, rationale. On Twitter, you should feel safe expressing your unique point of view. We believe in freedom of expression and open dialogue, but that means little as an underlying philosophy if voices are silenced because people are afraid to speak up. In order to facilitate healthy dialogue on the platform and empower individuals to express diverse opinions and beliefs, we prohibit behavior that harasses or intimidates or is otherwise intended to shame or degrade others. In addition to posing risks to people's safety, abusive behavior may also lead to physical or emotional hardship for those affected. Right. A lot of words. But not saying a lot. They're just saying Twitter is a place for people to say whatever they can, but we don't want people to stop that. Harassment is a form of stopping that expression, that freedom of expression. Right. When this applies, so when does this apply? Meaning, say, when does abusive behavior apply? Not sure if it's really rated harassment, but we'll see. Some tweets may seem to be abusive when viewed in isolation, but may not be when viewed in context of a larger conversation. When we review this type of content, it may not be clear whether it is intended to harass an individual or whether it is part of a consensual conversation. For the most part, any conversations had in Twitter is not consensual unless you're implying the very use of Twitter is consensual, as in whatever you tweet out in Twitter is meaning to say you're open for anyone to have a conversation with you, which I don't think is true. To help our teams understand the context of a conversation, we may need to hear directly from the person being targeted. We ensure that we have the information needed prior to taking any enforcement action. So they are going to be listening to on the side who would be considered the victim in a abusive behavior violation. We will review and take actions against reports of accounts targeting an individual or group of people with any of the following behavior with tweets or direct messages, or accounts engaging in abusive behavior on their profile. Please refer to our abusive profile policy for behavior targeting people based on their race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. This may be in violation of our hateful conduct policy. So I think there are two policies. One is this, and then the other one is hateful conduct, for which I don't know why they are separating this, this could be both together, but I guess they can, and I guess why not? But yeah, for this one, abusive behavior. Harassment is probably more towards general harassment. And for hateful conduct is harassment, specifically targeting protected characteristics, as I mentioned over here. So we'll look into hateful conduct in a bit, but I think we'll just briefly go through it, since I don't think we have any problems in finding out what is the protected characteristics, like race, ethnicity, and such. Okay, we'll skim through all this. Violent threats. Okay, I don't think we have to. So harassment, abusive behavior in here means violent threats. Okay, prohibit content that makes violent threats against an unidentifiable target. Right. So this is in general. It doesn't have to be any certain group of people. Anyone can be a target of violent threats. Wishing, hoping, or calling of serious harm. Yeah. All group of people. But wishes or harm exceptions, Twitter. Yeah, so they have an exceptions for this, as in inciting violence against certain group of people is partially okay, depending on the context. So they have this examples, which is saying, I wish all rapists to die, child abusers should be hanged. This sort of things apparently is allowed to a certain extent, which they won't outright delete, but they will just request for deletion without any risk of account penalty, strike, or suspension. Then we have unwanted sexual advances. I'm guessing this is more towards sexual harassment online, right? I don't think we have to discuss this as well. Using insults, profanity, or slurs with the purpose of harassing or intimidating others. So we'll look into this one. Kinda is what we're looking for, actually. We take action. The use of insults, profanity, or slurs to target others. In some cases, such as but not limited to severe, repetitive usage of insults or slurs where the primary intent is to harass or intimidate others, we may require tweet removal. In other cases, such as but not limited to moderate, isolated usage of insults and profanity where the primary intent is to harass or intimidate others, we may limit tweet visibility as further described below. Please also note that while some individuals may find certain terms to be offensive, we will not take actions against every instance where insulting terms are used. So, they say a lot of things, but at the end, they give an exception to this part. So, anyone who uses insults, profanity, or slurs with the purpose of harassing or intimidating, very hard to prove this, whether there's an intent or not. Yeah, I would say there is a problem with it in the sense that they require a person to have intent to only qualify as harassment. What if the person denies they have any intent to harass or intimidate? Alright, this is a bit of a, I would say, something that can be argued. But that's it, right? We have no idea how Twitter moderates anything, especially in this current circumstance where, you know, the boss of Twitter is someone that is something would really focus on moderation or put importance in moderation. So in this climate, discussing harassment and all this stuff is purely for educational purposes only. Whether or not Twitter actually enforces these rules or not, hard to say. But I can tell you, and who is the boss Twitter now? You know. I can tell you, at least the automated system is they would hide tweets that are clearly not there to have a proper consensual conversation. They're just there to, pick a fight, sort of. I've browsed many tweets, and I've seen controversial tweets, and they always have this. When you scroll down to the bottom, they will have a tweet that is hidden, and it will tell you they have hidden this tweet because of something. Maybe they just it says in general it violates their policies and such, so it is hidden from view. So at least there's some consolation prize in moderation. Other than that, there's a lot of tweets that doesn't get removed regardless of how bad it is. Because there's too much. When there is toxicity in Twitter, any amount of moderation would not help you, at least in the short term, where people are looking at it, where all sorts of people are looking at it when a tweet is trending. So yeah. Anyhow, encouraging or calling others to harass an individual or group of people. We prohibit behavior that encourages others to harass or target specific individuals or groups with abusive behavior. This includes, but is not limited to, calls to target people with abuse or harassment online, and behavior that reduces offline action such as physical harassment. So again, this is another problem of what you consider is encouraging or calling others to harass someone. Do you have to take action to mean that you are encouraging or harass people? Or by just being silent about it and not telling people not to harass people would also be considered encouraging or calling others to harass people? That's the question, because most of the time the Twitter accounts, the people on Twitter has influence over a community, doesn't directly tell people to do something. So that would be the problem. But then again, on the other side, I've seen tweets where they call out people, right? Literally calling out people, not harassing them. Of course, that's the second tweet they will be tweeting. They will be calling out people, saying that this person has committed this thing that is unethical or illegal, blah 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 blah. I'm just doing this for awareness, and then says, do not harass this person. I'm just giving awareness to people. All right, don't go and say bad things about them. That is all fine and good, right? It's all fine and good. But the problem is sometimes it's people, when they call out, they don't censor anything. They don't censor any information that they are trying to call out against the person, right? Their username or their private conversations or anything like that. So in a way, if they did something really, really bad, right? And people know what their username is and where to find them, can you really say that you have absolved your responsibility by just saying, don't harass them, all right? But seeing people getting harassed at either way. Yeah, so that's another problem we have, is at least in the VTuber community, where a lot of people are calling out each other and they don't think that's a problem. Anyhow, moving on. Denying mass casualty defense took place. I don't think I have to talk about this. It's ridiculous. Some people actually believe this sort of stuff. Do I need to be the target of this content for it to be reviewed? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. The only one, this entire policy, the only two things that I see would be important is either is this one, using insults, profanity, or slurs, and also encouraging or calling others to harass the individual. This will be relevant to our topic today in considering what is harassment, right? So at least for Twitter, both the person in themselves causing the harassment, committing the harassment, would violate this policy, as well as people telling other people, a person, a streamer, a Twitter account user, of course, this isn't, it's not, doesn't involve streamer. A person telling other people to harass someone is also considered harassment, or in this case, abusive behavior. So yeah, good. I would say over here, this is where I want to find out what it means in terms of harassment. Still very broad in definition though. Insults, profanity, or slurs can still mean anything. All right. So the other one I wanted to talk about is the hateful conduct policy. So this one, I'll just briefly explain. All right. So since they are saying don't promote violence against or directly attack or threaten other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, caste, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. So a lot of categories, but simply put, if you're attacking someone, or you're threatening someone, or you're promoting violence against someone, I'm not sure what attack really means in this context. Probably harassment as well. If you're doing any of these things and targeting certain specific groups, then it would mean you're in violation of this policy, right? So what I can think of in relation to the context we're talking about here is, if let's say again you're targeting transgender people, whatever reason you're saying, whatever things you're saying, that is specifically saying, talking about transgender people, either you're threatening them or attacking them or promoting violence against them, this would be the policy that you have violated, right? No matter how good a reason you have, right? You can't say things like this. It is misinformational. It is harmful, very harmful. I've already probably talked about this here and there, but if people can't see why this is bad, always just substitute to something that you can relate to. Simply put, if let's say a certain group of religious people, someone, a certain individual professes a certain religion, is of a certain nationality, ethnicity, race, etc. I will give my own example. I say I'm an atheist, and if someone says and comes towards me and say, "Damn, you're evil, you're bad because you're an atheist," or something like that, or all atheists should something bad. Is that right? Right? Doesn't sound right. Or you could say, I'm Chinese. So if someone comes up to me and say, all Chinese are this and that, something bad again, they're referring to Chinese. Would you think that's right? Would you say, if let's say a certain individual did something bad, it really did something bad, right? But out of the blue, you're getting targeted because you're in the same category, you're in the same groups of these people. Maybe you have the same race, same ethnicity, same nationality, anything. Would that be right? It wouldn't be right, right? So yeah, people don't know why when you call certain groups, an entire group, something bad is harmful, because it either reinforces their very negative stereotypes or it creates negative stereotypes, right? That's how all this happens. In any case, we're moving on now. So let's say I would add this actually to our conversation here. Oh, never mind. I can't. At the moment, I'm not using the correct account to access this. But oh well. Moving on. This one, I don't think I want to spend too much time talking about. It's not really relevant to our topic right now. But just to mention this, that YouTube also has a policy on harassment. They even have a video talking about harassment, right? But again, the video doesn't really explain too much. I'll let you watch. It's a really short one.
True or false? If you make a video that encourages viewers to post cruel and malicious comments on another video, that could result in a strike on your channel. The answer is true. Content or behavior intended to harass, threaten, or bully others is not allowed on YouTube. Neither is maliciously recording someone without their consent or revealing someone's private personal information. Let's take a look at some examples. Creator A is angry after a heated exchange with Creator B and decides to share Creator B's personal home address and private phone number in a video that encourages viewers to send nasty messages to Creator B. In another video, a creator wants fans to communicate with them directly via social media, so they share their social media handles and email address on their channel. Do either of these videos violate our community guidelines? Yes. The first video violates our harassment policy. Don't use YouTube to maliciously share personal information about another individual. But how about photo editing someone's face into an embarrassing image? What about uploading videos of prank calls to emergency services? Are those violations too? To learn those answers and more about our harassment policy, go to the YouTube Help Center article linked here, or use the link in the description. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. So the link they're talking about is this page. So not really that helpful, right? The video talks about very basic stuff, like, you know, when you're posting videos, this is more towards a video format, not really specifying on streams or comments maybe even, but still it's a good place to see, because they do have streaming services on YouTube. So we'll see what do they actually mean when they say harassment. Content that threatens individuals is not allowed on YouTube. We also don't allow content that targets an individual with prolonged or malicious insults based on intrinsic attributes. These attributes include their protected group status or physical traits. So this one, short description, it just means, yeah, the individual should not be threatened. Threatened with harm, threatened with any kind of harm, which is understandable. It also doesn't allow for prolonged or malicious insults based on intrinsic attributes. This is also very easy to understand. It's basically, do not insult someone, do not continuously insult someone based on something which they call intrinsic attributes. Again, this is similar to all the discrimination stuff, where you can't discriminate a person based on race, ethnicity, nationality, sex, gender identity, all that stuff, right? So this is pretty narrow, I would say. It's very narrow. If you find content that violates this, very short. What? All right, over here they have something extra, of course. What this policy means for you: if you're posting content that features prolonged name calling or malicious insults such as racial slurs based on someone's intrinsic attributes, these attributes include their protected group status, physical attributes, or their status as a survivor of sexual assault, non-consensual intimate imagery distribution, domestic abuse, child abuse, and more. So all this stuff would be considered intrinsic attributes. Content uploaded with the intent to shame, deceive, or insult a minor. A minor is defined as an individual under the legal age of majority It usually means anyone younger than 18 years old, but the age of a minor might vary by geography. Alright, so this is new. This is unique to YouTube, right? Harassment for YouTube, at least here, when it means that an action that intends to shame or deceive or insult a minor, a person, is only narrowed down. It's only specified to minors only. So if you're not a minor and you get shamed, deceived, or insulted, it might not be considered harassment. Again, we have the calling of malicious, prolonged name calling and malicious insults, and the threats, getting threatened is something that could still be considered violations of this policy. So moving on, they have other types, of course. So they have a lot of examples over here. Revealing someone's personal identity information. Okay, this is understandable. Content that incites others to harass or threaten individuals on or off YouTube. So apparently they have a policy that covers not just YouTube space itself, but also outside of it. So again, this one I would say relevant, which I think I can highlight it. But this is something we should take note. All right, content that encourages abusive fan behavior such as doxing, dogpiling, brigading, or off-platform targeting. This is very relevant to our understanding what harassment is. Then we have content that targets an unidentifiable individual as part of harmful conspiracy theory, where the conspiracy theory has been linked to direct threats or violent acts. Okay, implicit, explicit harm. Not really what we need to find out. Not relevant to us. But these are all considered harassment, right? These are considered harassment. All these examples. The ones I highlighted is the ones we're focusing on, but all of these examples are considered harassment. Content depicts a staged meetup that is used to accuse an unidentifiable individual of egregious misconduct with a minor without the presence of a law enforcement. Content reveling in or mocking the death or serious injury of an identifiable individual. Content that depicts creators simulating acts of serious violence against others. Yeah. All this, they're very broad. Yeah, very broad. But all this can be summed up as, threats of violence and insults. Content that displays or shows how to distribute non-consensual sexual imagery. This policy applies to videos, video descriptions, comments, live streams, and any other YouTube product or feature. Yeah, they always have this exception because YouTube kind of is trying to promote educational stuff or documentary, scientific, and artistic stuff. So if you're within this EDSA category, you'll be fine. At least it's very specific though. You have to be very careful with talking about these topics and showing examples and news and such. In any case, no. Yeah, they also have a bunch of even more specific samples over here, but I don't think I want to talk about them too much. But yeah, we'll just quickly go through it. I won't read it if it's too much. It doesn't really relate back to our context that we are discussing. This one. This has happened, as I have seen in a Silvervalse controversy, using an extreme insult to dehumanize an individual based on their intrinsic attributes, For example, look at this. Yeah, so this is something I've seen being thrown around. Depicting an identifier to be accounts dedicated entirely to focusing on malicious, insulting, and identifiable individual. Threatening someone. This one I also see a lot on Twitter. Yeah. Zooming. Yeah. So this too, I would say, is something people should be wary of, because I constantly see this on Twitter. But anyways, yeah, harassment would include all these things that I highlighted, which has happened during the Silvervalse controversy. Which will mean, yeah, harassment is happening. Harassment is happening. Funnily enough, you can only find this sort of a definition in these platforms. You can't find these specific examples in actual laws. Right. So that's pretty much it for all the platforms and laws that we were trying to look at. Okay. So at the end, at this stage, we can say, if we want to find out what harassment really is, the better way, or the more precise way of finding out definition is with the social media platforms. They have, most of them, I would say, have a definition what it means of a person committing harassment, right? Especially say Twitch. Twitch is a good place to find out what is harassment. I've also said this in general. If anyone wants to have a sense of what is right or wrong to do, especially in the online space, in the internet, Twitch community guidelines or any guidelines is the place that you need to look at. What is right or wrong? They cover all sorts of things. They have all sorts of examples saying what is ethical, what is not ethical, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Very a lot of things. Okay, so that's it. What should we? So what are we trying to get out of this? So there is harassment, right? There is harassment, but there are also very legitimate, how do you say, criticisms, or there are legitimate statements where people should consider, right? They shouldn't just, because of a sea of harassment happening, they should find out why in the first place harassment is happening, right? We need to, I won't say, you're getting a lot, if a person is getting a lot of harassment, they shouldn't be looking at themselves as the victim. They are the victim, right? But because this is more in the context of a lot of people are saying a lot of things, why it happens. If it happens because it's not your fault or anything, then it's fine, right? You don't really have to consider it any further. But if it's happening and you don't understand why people are harassing you, I think maybe give it a bit more thought and consideration into it. Try finding out why, and it could lead to two different results. Either reinforcing that these people are harassing you for the wrong reasons, it's fine. But if you there's some sort of a legitimate claim, a thing that you have to consider. Maybe you have to change your mind or take actions at least to address it. I would say that is a very healthy way to approach this sort of a controversy, right? People have accused you of doing something wrong, right? Condemn, how do you say? Condemn the people that are doing the wrong things. Also, try to see if there's anything that you did wrong. Because I would say we'll talk about this further, but yeah, in a way I'm trying to say about criticisms. So as the page or title that you're looking right now, what if people claim it was just criticism and not harassment, right? Why people are saying that? How would you respond to that, right? To that argument, to that claim. But first, so we have to find out what is criticism then. So I did a tiny bit of research on this, but that's not much, because criticism isn't like a law or anything. It's just a way of thinking things, or like a way of stating something, providing some sort of statement. So what is criticism? According to Cambridge Dictionary, the act of saying that something or someone is bad. Okay, it's pretty similar. Just by looking at that, it looks really similar to what harassment means. Then we have the act of giving your opinion or judgment about the good or bad qualities of something or someone, especially books, films, etc. So just with the dictionary definition of criticism, I can tell you that the only difference between harassment and criticism is criticism doesn't show what the consequence of providing that criticism is, quote unquote consequence. Meaning to say, if you told something, if you said something or told someone that they are bad, or some sort of like they're not doing something good enough, it doesn't tell you what are the effects of saying that, right? It could go either way. It could go to the harassment route, in the sense that, yeah, if you say this, it might upset them, it might hurt them, it might make them uncomfortable. That is what harassment here is: annoy them or upset them. So in a sense, criticism is harassment, but without the malicious intent behind it, or the consequence behind the effect of it. The other route, of course, the other route would be providing criticism with the effect of making the person wanting to improve themselves, right? Saying something that would make them want to reflect on it, to consider their wrongs, to whether or not they want to change their mind or not. That would be, I would say, a constructive criticism, right? But again, really depends, as I said over here, personal opinion. Why I would say criticism would be considered harassment, right? If they fit into one of these few things that I thought of, all right? It's really just my opinion, and then what I think, how criticism could become harassment, right? So criticism could be harassment if, let's say, maybe it's repeated enough, and also directed against the person. If you keep telling the person, you should do this, over and again, and the person doesn't want to listen to you or takes your opinion, criticism seriously, but you still continue to do it, then that would probably mean some form of harassment. Then you're doing it knowingly that this person doesn't want to change their mind, but you're saying it regardless. So what's the intention behind doing that, right? You're not trying to change the person's mind. You're just saying it out of spite. So yeah, that's the first one. So whether it's done maliciously to cause harm, distress, or disrupt a person's life. So again, this comes back to why are you saying this to that person? If you do you really have the intention to want to change that person's mind? If not, then most likely your intentions is not good one. It's not bona fide. It's more malicious than bona fide. And we have whether the criticism is constructive or destructive. Right? Sometimes criticism can be a good one. Sometimes it can be a bad one. A bad one in the sense that you're not trying to tell them to do anything good. It might be just saying they're doing something bad. Don't give any suggestions or recommendations on how to improve or how to change or what not to do and what to do. That could be consider destructive criticism. You're giving criticism, but you're not trying to help the person improve in any way possible. You just leave them to their own devices. It was what we consider destructive. But also very important to find out whether criticism could be considered harassment is whether this person is a public figure or not, right? This changes a lot of things for people, and I think not a lot of people consider this. Don't think about whether harassment for everyone is the same or not, right? A person might be getting a lot of statements against them, right? It could mean harassment, but another person getting the same amount of statements, receiving another statements, could not be considered harassment. So we find out why. But to find out why, we need to figure out what's public figure. All right. So again, Cambridge Dictionary, very simple. I don't want to get complicated. What's public figure? But the simple, direct definition is a famous person who is often written about in newspapers, the magazines, or is often a television or the radio. Oh, thank you for the follow. Oh, P6069. All right. You know you didn't follow me. Welcome. So yeah, what is a public figure? At least in Cambridge Dictionary, it means someone that is famous and is often talked about in news outlets or social media or, TV, as they say. But for our context, we can simply apply this as if we are talking about VTubers. It's basically VTubers that are have a community, have a following, have enough of a following that we can consider them famous. Because the other thing that this doesn't really say, right? It doesn't really say is what a public figure is capable of, right? And we have to consider a few things when it comes to harassment, all right? When we're saying about harassment on public figures. But for me, right, just to say this is, I believe anyone that is a VTuber is making content for a public space, in a public space. They are making content in a public space. Their intentions is to grow big. Whether or not they have a substantial following or not, doesn't matter. But the more they have, the more people they are following, the more people they are interacting with, more likely you're considered a public figure, of course. And yeah, as long as all these simple criteria is there, I would say a VTuber is someone that would be considered a public figure, right? Regardless if you think you're not, but my personal opinion. So consider this: a public figure's actions and statements are expected to receive a substantial amount of criticism for them, no matter what they do, right? So for me, all right, someone that is considered to be a public figure whatever they do, whatever they say, it's going to get some sort of criticism. Whether that's actually harassment or not, it doesn't matter, because we, as people who are in the public space, we are very vocal in the public space. That's most likely we're going to receive some sort of a criticism by people. Some people, most likely part of the community or anyone, is going to look at your content and they will have an opinion on it, and they might be vocal about their opinion and will state it out, right? The more people following you, the more engagement you get, the more exposure you get as a content creator, the more likely that you're going to receive all kinds of things being said to you, right? So that's the basis, all right? Because you should also consider whether a public figure may claim harassment just by the sheer volume of replies they receive in public spaces from different individuals. So yeah, can a person, knowing that they have a lot of people following them, knowing a lot of people watch their content, claim harassment if there's going to be significant amount of people trying to talk to you, right? Especially if, let's say, you're a very famous Twitch streamer, your chat is going to be going all like crazy. Your Twitter account, maybe you post something, you tweet something, you're going to get a lot of replies. So within all these replies, within all these messages, don't you think when you do something problematic, something controversial, something that might not be agreeable with most people, with some people, they're going to voice it out, right? So that's why when I say down here, are public figures held to a higher standard of conduct in public spaces, right? Why I say that is a lot of reasons. Simply put, the things you say, the things you do has a very likely effect to influence people. I say this every time in my streams, every time when I make certain content talking about content creation. I would tell people, VTubers, content creators have influence over people, whether you like it or not, whether you deny it or not. Whatever a person says has some influence over another. For example, even if we don't talk about VTubers or famous people, if we are talking about someone that you are like best friends with, your mother, your father, your siblings, someone that is very important to you, your wife maybe, your husband, your partner, spouse, or whatever, the things that they do, the things that they say would likely affect you, right? Because you hold to some trust, some admiration, some reliance towards these people, and you believe what they do is right, and you follow in their footsteps because you want to be them, right? The same goes for VTubers. Even if, let's say, right now, anyone that's watching this stream, right, listening to me is going to have some influence over your thoughts and stuff. So that's why I'm very careful with what I say and what I do. I would try to tell you, whatever has been said and done, do think for your own self. Do consider things, right? And try to do good for people. Try not to harm anyone. This is why I always repeat these things, because I don't want to be construed as someone I don't want to like be ignorant that I don't have any influence over people. Even if I'm like only one person is being influenced with what I am saying, that is still something. I'm affecting society to some certain level, right? Whether it's 1 person, 10 person, 100 person or not, I'm still affecting people. people's mind. So especially in very sensitive issues like this, whereby it involves targeted groups, right? Playing a game is going to be a very sensitive topic because of the controversies behind the game. Is a decision I don't want to make lightly. It's a decision I don't want to make lightly, because whether I boycott the game or play the game, it's going to reflect not only myself, but everyone in my community as well. People are following me because they understand I'm providing a safe space. They understand I'm very vocal about certain rights, of human rights and such, the queer community. And it's not something I can turn off. I can't simply, I want to play this game without actually considering, what happens if I play this game? What does it mean for the people that would be watching me or interacting with me, or have some sort of a admiration or guidance, right? Maybe people are looking for me for guidance. Maybe people are looking for me to see what is the right thing or wrong thing to do. I have to think about it, right? It's for me, right? For me, I think VTubers, content creators, have a responsibility, have a duty towards their community. That's why I get really disappointed when people are public about opinions that are harmful to certain groups, right? But that's a conversation I would have another time, right? The right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. But in any case, my point is public figures have influence over people, right? The more famous you are, the more people are following you, the more likely there will be some people looking at you and seeing what you're doing, and they will be following your footsteps. All right. That's why the last question I asked is, what should be considered harassment for public figures? What should be that? Is it the same as any other individuals that are not content creators, that are not public figures, or they should be held to a higher position? They should be held at a higher standard for what they should be doing, right? Doing anything less would justify any criticisms they're going to receive. Compared to a person, if let's say, compared to a normal person and an individual who is not a public figure, say something, the same thing, like say playing a game, right? Playing a game is controversial. A VTuber plays it and a normal stranger, a random person plays it. Which would be more likely be held a higher standard of conduct? For me, it's obviously the VTuber, the person who has some influence over the community, right? That's what I believe at the very least, and that's why I feel like there is I would say some circumstances or some situation I would say that harassment is not necessarily the case, or at least even if there is harassment, it's something to be prepared against, mentally prepared for harassment. Because I'm doing this, I'm a VTuber, I'm a content creator, I'm doing this fully expecting that there will be people who disagree with me. There will be people who might be going to be harass me for whatever I say, whatever I do. But I have to at least, whether they are right or wrong, I have to at least prepare myself, as in be educated in the decisions I make. Be considerate, right? Think long and hard whether there is any consequence, whether there is any repercussions in the things that I do believe or have a stance on, Anyhow, we're about to end. So the only thing I can conclude with this seminar is that everyone should condemn harassment. Not saying no one should do that, right? Not saying if a little bit of harassment or a lot of harassment, you should tolerate. You shouldn't tolerate any amount of harassment, right? Harassment is harassment. Saying bad things for the intention to harm someone, for the intention to hurt someone, for me would be considered harassment. And yeah, even then, what we should focus is not the people actually committing harassment. What we should focus on is instead constructive criticism, right? To look for constructive criticism. That's the question. That's a good question, right? Not in Twitter. Don't find constructive criticisms in Twitter. If let's say you're involved in some sort of controversy, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is talk to someone you trust. Talk to someone experienced in this sort of situation. For example, talk to if let's say we're talking about the Silvervalse controversy, talk to someone that is affected by the game. Right? Don't make opinions just based on articles, just on what strangers say in the internet. If you have friends, if you have families that is transgender, right? Ask their opinion, because they are the people that are getting harassed for their entire life. They are struggling through their lives, that they are getting their rights removed or additionally restricted in trying to be who they want to be. Those are the people that you should be looking for constructive criticism. Those are the people you should be looking for to see whether you should play the game or not. If they say that's no problem, it's fine. You play the game. If they say don't, respect their wishes and don't play the game, right? If you're looking out for your friends, if you want to support them in any way they can, if doing this simple thing where it's not going to affect you in any way if you don't play the game, I find it very difficult to accept, unless it's very, very important for you to play for some reason, like your life depends on it. Your life depends on playing the game. I would say those are the only exceptions, right? If the only joy you can get in your life somehow relies solely on this game, play the game, right? I want you to leave. I want you to live a happy life, right? If playing the game makes you happy, do it, right? It keeps you wanting to go through your days, do it, right? But in most cases, again, if you have the choice, you can make a choice to not play the game. Why not? All right. So last thing, all right? Again, why I say VTubers or content creators should, be responsible with what their community does, right? Twitch also says this, all right? Twitch also says this. So according to Twitch community guidelines, under sexual harassment, of course, streamers are leaders of the communities they create or foster around them. Streamers should always consider the consequences of their statements and actions of their audiences. Sometimes unwanted focus or attention can encourage others to escalate their behavior into abuse. For example, broadcasting other Twitch streams while insulting these users often encourages others to also direct abuse to the target. So yeah, even Twitch says this indirectly, in a sense, whereby although you don't specifically tell people that you want them to do something as bad as harassment, but just by saying something in a bad light, giving some sort of negativity when it's not warranted, it's not justifiable, especially to an entire group of people, or just being totally silent about it, or totally ignorant about it, not caring the feelings of this certain group of people, whereby in contradiction of your claims of wanting to have a safe space, or providing a safe space, or being wholesome, I would say it would also likely promote this kind of behavior amongst people. I can tell you a lot of communities, a lot of content creators that strive to promote a enjoyable, fun, safe, comfortable environment, doesn't only just be wholesome or be kind or generous or anything like that. They constantly tell people to do it, regardless of who that person is. Right? I would give a good example would be critical roles. Not sure if people know about that. It's basically a group of people, very famous voice actors, who does tabletop RPG streams on Twitch as well as YouTube. They always tell people, all the members of the critical role, always tell people to be kind to everyone, to kind to each other, and also very inclusive. They always mention certain things in real life that they strive to promote human rights. They do charities, all sorts of things. So just being good is not, I don't think it's good enough, unfortunately, for content creators. You have to constantly remind your communities as well, right? Because this, like Critical Role, are very intrinsically attached, related to the community. Whatever they do, majority of them, I including myself, is affected by what they do, right? I would like to say this is a lot of my thinking or empathy comes from Critical Role, specifically Matthew Mercer. He's like one of the most kindest person you can ever meet. Always very understanding of people. From the interviews, from the things that he tweets and such. I strive to be him, like become him in some way, right? That's why I have to believe as well that any public figure, whether they are small or big, has influence over people, right? We can't deny that. We can't say we can't be selfish about it, right? At least for me. Anyhow, thank you so much, for everyone that's watching me, especially for those that are going to be watching this in a VOD. If you like what you see, we give you a like, and if you have anything to say, comment down below. Hopefully they are constructive criticisms. And if you want to see more of this type of video, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like. So yeah, without further ado, that'll be it. See you next time for the people that are watching this as a VOD. Bye bye.